At the Lauderdale County Detention Center in Alabama, Vicky White starts her shift as a guard on April 29, 2022, and it looks like a completely normal workday for her. White had just told her colleagues that she was taking an inmate to the local courthouse for a psychological evaluation. But shortly afterward, this footage was recorded, showing Vicky walking out through the back door of the jail and, about half a minute later, coming back with a broad-shouldered inmate, about 2 meters tall. It's Casey White, a convicted criminal who is considered particularly dangerous. He is still wearing handcuffs and his inmate uniform. She opens the car door for him, he gets in, and then she climbs into the driver's seat and drives off. At first glance, everything looks normal, but then the other staff notice something. No second correctional officer got into the car, even though inmates are always required to be escorted by 2 officers. On top of that, Vicky has a firearm with her, which is strictly forbidden inside the prison walls. 6 hours pass before her colleagues at the jail realize there was never any courthouse appointment and that Vicky has just helped a criminal escape. But why did Vicky White do it? She and Casey secretly built a close connection to each other inside the jail and planned the escape long in advance. Vicky even sold her house and got a car specifically for it. For 11 days, they managed to stay undetected by constantly switching vehicles and hiding in motels. When Casey's ex-wife heard about the whole thing in the media, she was shocked and immediately warned Vicky.
If she is still alive, get the hell out. Run, run, run as far as you can and turn yourself in.
The escape ultimately ended in a high-speed chase. Casey surrendered, but Vicky shot herself, likely because she knew that otherwise she would end up behind bars, just like Casey. What's wild is, this case isn't a one-off. In this video, we are showing you some of the wildest things guards have done. Take 33-year-old Charlene Diane O'Banion. She also had a relationship with an inmate that went way too far. The woman from Texas worked at the Montgomery County Jail and fell in love with 28-year-old inmate Jacob Parker. The two of them were constantly on the phone and secretly met inside the jail in places that were not under video surveillance. But at some point, the other inmates became suspicious and informed the jail administration. On December 17, 2021, Charlene was confronted with the allegations, and at first she still thought she could simply deny everything.
Have you talked to him on any jail phone calls or anything like that?
No.
Not at all? Okay.
What she did not know was that the police already had evidence. They suddenly played one of Charlene and Jacob's phone calls, which they had listened to and recorded. And from the content, it was immediately obvious this was not just a friendly conversation.
I guess you're horny?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you felt me. I was like soaking through my clothes.
Charlene's explanation was that they had already known each other before his time in jail and had exchanged numbers back then. Everything they talked about on those calls, she claimed, had happened years earlier, but the officers kept pushing her, and at some point she could not keep her lie going anymore.
I might have given him a blowjob at that party.
How long ago was that?
2 months ago.
How long have you worked here?
Since April.
Since April this year?
Mm-hmm.
Was he already here?
He was right here.
And then it suddenly hit her what the consequences would be.
Would I go to jail?
That's up to the DA's office.
In fact, she was later sentenced to 100 days in jail and suspended from her job. Now let's move on to another prison guard who had all of New York on edge for several days. This is about 51-year-old Joyce Mitchell, an employee at the maximum security prison Clinton Correctional Facility. This prison was considered virtually escape-proof, but it turned out there actually was a way to get out with Joyce's help. But let's start from the beginning. Joyce secretly began building relationships with 2 inmates, Richard Matt and David Sweat, both convicted murderers. They worked in the prison tailor shop, which Joyce Mitchell supervised and where she saw them regularly. A witness said he constantly saw her disappearing into a back room with the 2 of them. Back there, they were unobserved enough to hatch a completely absurd plan. One day, Joyce came into the prison with a package of raw meat, with a hacksaw blade hidden inside, smuggled it into the workshop, and handed it to David. He then started cutting holes into the walls of his cell, and from then on spent nights inside the prison, where he cut through pipes and walls. On June 5, 2015, he had worked his way far enough that he and Richard actually managed to escape through the sewer tunnels. But Joyce's help was not finished yet. The plan was that she would meet the 2 inmates outside and even drive the getaway car. However, shortly before that, she had a panic attack and did not show up at the agreed meeting point. So the murderers fled on their own and triggered a 3-week manhunt in New York. In the end, they were found in the woods, and Richard Matt died in a shootout with police. David Sweat was captured again and taken back to prison. Joyce was too, and she was sentenced to 4 years in prison for helping them escape. Another prison guard whose workplace suddenly became his new home is Matthew Jaskula, a 27-year-old prison guard from Buffalo in New York. He abused his power in the worst way you can imagine. On May 19, 2016, he and his colleagues arrested 38-year-old Sean Porter on the streets of New York because he was accused of harassing someone. As they brought him to the station, this surveillance camera footage was recorded. You can see a guard dragging Sean Porter face first through a door by the guard and then smashing his head against an edge. The other staff watch the scene, and one of them even laughs. After that, Jaskula drags Sean Porter across the floor while Porter curls up in pain. The other officers watch calmly as Porter's clothes are ripped off and he is strapped into a restraint chair. He is left there alone for a full 45 minutes while he bleeds heavily. Another clip shows him later leaving the holding cell barefoot and without pants and being put into a police vehicle. As it later turned out, he actually broke his nose because of what happened. With all these brutal images, there is really only one question: why was he treated like this? And the sad answer is that Jaskula attacked him completely arbitrarily and without any reason, just because he thought he could do whatever he wanted. The court verdict proved he was absolutely wrong. Jaskula was sentenced to 18 months in prison for using excessive force, but he was not the only one to abuse his position as a police officer. There is another case where an officer used his experience as a cop to give himself an advantage. We are talking about 56-year-old Grant Hardin, an extremely dangerous criminal from Arkansas who used to work as a police officer but ended up in prison for murder and rape. Because of his previous job, he knew the routines of the officers and the weak points in the building inside and out. And that is exactly what he used in May 2025 to escape from prison in a spectacular yet inconspicuous way. He simply put on a correctional officer's uniform and then casually walked out of the prison without anyone stopping him. An employee even opened the security gate for him because he thought it was a colleague. His escape was immediately all over the news and the entire area was put on alert. Residents were told to lock their doors because Hardin was considered highly violent and armed. The people who were most afraid were those who had already been victims of Hardin, for example, the sister of one of his murder victims.
Are you scared that he's going to come after you?
As bad as I hate guns, we have one loaded.
Just in case.
Just in case.
It took 12 days before the police found him in the woods and locked him up again. Now let's talk about a prison guard whose salary apparently was not enough for him and who wanted to earn a little extra money. Tyler Moody from the Collin County Jail in Texas apparently thought, who would be better customers than the inmates I'm supposed to be guarding? In October 2022, he actually went so far as to smuggle a phone into the jail for an inmate. In return, the inmate paid him, and that inmate was not in jail for something minor, but for murder, which makes it even worse. But the business model was not quite as profitable as he hoped because another guard found the phone under the inmate's mattress, and Tyler was held responsible. His sheriff, Jim Skinner, then called him in for a talk.
Moody, I understand that you've offered your resignation. Is that correct? Have you offered your resignation or not?
I can keep my job or no.
Well, you can't keep your job, okay? So let me just make it easy. You're fired. You're no longer an employee here. You understand?
He then forced him to take off his uniform because he did not deserve to wear it. Corruption is considered a third-degree felony in the United States, which means Tyler Moody actually had to go to prison for this mistake, and specifically to the same jail where he worked. But it is not only in the United States that prison staff keep making headlines because of misconduct. Now let's look at a case from Scotland that shows how quickly even a seemingly small moment can destroy everything. In the summer of 2021, a young officer named Rachel Wilson caused a stir at Addywell Prison after intimate footage of her and inmate Kevin Hogg surfaced. In the video, you can see Kevin Hogg setting up his phone in his cell and then waiting for her behind the door. First, they talk briefly, then Rachel steps into the cell and a passionate kiss follows. You can see that she does not resist and that the kiss is consensual. However, she certainly would not have agreed to being filmed. Kevin Hogg had lured her into a trap. He had flirted with her a lot beforehand and wanted to prove to the other inmates that he could get an officer to kiss him. So it was all just bragging, but for Rachel, it meant she lost her job. Now we want to know which of these incidents shocked you the most, and why. Tell us in the comments, and if you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this.